What's going on, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar, and I'm here with David Pepose and Alex Cormack. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Doing great, yeah. Having a great time. Love New York Comic Con.
Yeah, this place is awesome. And thank you to Mad Cave for putting this together. Now, we're here to talk about this new book that they're working on together, The Devil That Wears My Face. And I just want to know how that came about, first of all.
Oh, yeah. We actually started talking about this book 2 years ago at New York Comic Con. So we're actually hitting the 2-year anniversary of this book. Mad Cave and I, we've been in contact for a long time. Chris Fernandez and Mark London have been real supporters of my work, dating back to my first book, Spencer and Locke.
Yeah.
And so they've been hitting me up for some time saying, oh, we'd love to do a project together. And so as we were kind of like batting around ideas, we all really gravitated towards The Devil That Wears My Face, which is basically Face Off meets The Exorcist. And as we were putting that series...
I like both of those movies.
Yeah, right? And as we were kind of putting the scripts together, Mark and Chris were like, who would be like a great artist for this book? And I immediately said, Alex Cormack. And luckily I was able to pitch him on it over Twitter DM. He was excited about it, and we were off to the races.
Now, okay, so then I have to ask Alex, how does that work? Like, did you know David ahead of time?
Oh, yeah. We've known each other for a bunch of years.
Okay.
We see each other at shows, and like we have friends that are friends and all that type of stuff. So
have you guys worked together in the past?
and we haven't worked together in the past.
No.
We were trying to, we kicked around a couple ideas, but never landed on anything. And Dave sent this idea. I'm like, oh, this sounds like going to be a blast. Yeah, no, I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, so David pitched it to you,
Yep.
and you said, yeah, all right, let's
Yeah,
do
let's
it.
do it. Yeah.
And that's it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's been on my bucket list to work with Alex for some time. I've been a fan of his since his work on Sync over at Comics Tribe, and seeing his work at IDW with our mutual friend Rich Jewick on Road of Bones and Sea of Sorrows and Breath of Shadows, and the amazing Crimson Cage over at AWA, I was like, he's the best horror artist of his generation. I have to work with this guy. It's my first horror book, and we are hitting the ground running on this one.
All right, so give me the elevator pitch, and then I'll ask Alex the same question and see
Yeah.
if you both agree.
So, The Devil That Wears My Face, it's Face Off meets The Exorcist. It follows Father Franco Vieri, who's an 18th century Vatican priest who's grappling with a pretty profound crisis of faith. His superiors send him to Spain to perform an exorcism on a nobleman's son, and unfortunately the ritual backfires. And so Vieri finds himself stranded in a stranger's body while the biblical demon known as Legion has taken over Vieri's body and hightails it back to the Vatican to wreak havoc. So it's a fun kind of cat and mouse game with some real fun bursts of historical horror thrown in for good measure.
Okay, so it was about 10 stories of elevator ride right there. What do you got, Alex?
Say, you buy this book and you buy it right now.
Okay, that's scary. I like that. We didn't even make it one floor up. Okay. So you are working on The Punisher,
Yeah.
currently, right? And I'm a big fan of your Savage Avengers, so I really like that book.
Thank you.
I'd love to see that in an oversized hardcover format someday.
Write your congressman.
Now, how different is something like this than writing an pre-existing character? That, I mean, this is the new Punisher. No
Sure.
spoilers, but it's not Frank Castle. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But it's still part of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how is that different than...
I think you really just nailed it on the head in that, when you're writing something in Marvel, you are writing in a greater universe. It is sort of a component of a larger tapestry. And so you're figuring out kind of how do you make that piece feel unique within that tapestry, and also just kind of navigating really the traffic of it all, figuring out what characters are available, how do you not double up too much on what somebody else is doing in another book. Whereas something that The Devil That Wears My Face, that is the focus. You have this one story, and you don't have to really worry about what else is going on in any other books or any other creative teams.
You can't use Steve Rogers.
I
Sorry,
can't use
David.
Steve Rogers. Not in this one. The Cap That Wears My Face. That's
Yeah.
The Devil That Wears My Cap. That'll be our sequel.
Could be a crossover someday.
Yeah,
You never know.
And I think also it's the genre. When I'm working in Marvel, even if there is something is more sci-fi based or a little more fantasy based, it's the genre is all rooted pretty deeply in superheroes. Whereas something like The Devil That Wears My Face, it's my very first horror book.
Nice.
And so writing something like that, not only are you navigating just the sheer plot structure of it all, just making sure that you're taking your audience on a journey that is satisfying and hits the emotional beats, but you have to be scary about it as well.
Yes.
And doing something, especially in a serialized monthly format, that's great. It's great structure in that every issue has to have a couple of beats in it that are going to make you feel scared or uncomfortable. And so that's a great way of punctuating our series. It also means certain scenes have to perform double duty to make sure that they're delivering the exposition that's needed while still being scary. So they're very different animals, but if you like one, I think you'll definitely like the other as well.
Okay. So all that's in your head. You've got this visually
Yeah.
in your head. That's a hard task, like for you to draw out, and you're like, but you already chose your artist, right? So you already know kind of like what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
It's a little unfair. How was it getting the script to paper? Like, what inspired you? Are you a big horror fan?
Oh, I'm a big horror fan. Yeah, most of my work that I do is horror, but I mean, yeah, for horror movies, horror comics, horror, you name it, I love. It's fun. But with this guy, I mean, I sat down and read the script, and how he finished his first issue. I was like, oh, I mean, we're done. That could be a story just right there, but now we're gonna keep going. And I was like, oh, and he was like, oh yeah, you don't mind doing like sword fights, or you don't mind like horse shit? I'm like, no, yeah, bring it. That sounds like a blast. And so basically sat down like, all right, this is a handful of characters. This is what he could look like, and like what, doing the research on what they were wear back then, what some of these guys would look like. I mean, like making sure like the haircuts would match. 1740 haircuts, and but yeah.
Thank God for the internet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Google's been very helpful.
What are some of your favorite horror movies?
Favorite horror movies?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh my God. Well, I was talking about Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dev.
Classic.
Just a bonkers gore fest and everything. I love The Witch, the Vivitch, especially because I'm from New England, so that's like, oh, that's my backyard. Yeah.
That's what okay.
But and like bonkers ones like Grindhouse, I love like Planet Terror side, and
yes.
But at the same time, I love Exorcist, which helped out with this a lot.
So what about horror comics? Where do you gravitate towards?
Oh, it's with comics. Yeah, it's just. Well, for example, Philadelphia right now is fantastic. Yeah. Just the look of that is just amazing. I mean, and we can go all the way down to like EC Comics and Tales of the Crypt, and those guys are just a blast. And there's so much good stuff out there. The Nasty right now, written by our friend John Lees, is fantastic. Everybody should pick that up. Okay. And but yeah, I mean, there's so much good stuff out there. It's great. It's an embarrassment of riches, and I love taking advantage of it.
What about you, David?
Oh,
Best horror movies. I'm not here to judge, I promise.
I think
the ones he picked.
my all-time favorite horror movie is 28 Days Later. Love that movie. It kind of scarred me from horror for a little while. It took me a little while to go back to the genre because it was so visceral. Things like The Fly. I love that.
Like the original Fly or the 80s Fly?
80s Fly.
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum Fly, man.
That arm wrestling?
Yeah.
Dude, that's forever.
But the
his bones. Oh,
when
dude.
Also, just like when he's doing like the gymnastic stuff around his apartment, it's like it's wild.
Gina Davis is like still crushing on him, even though he's like melting.
Child's Play, love that. Things like even kind of like just tense fare, things like I don't know if Missing and Searching count,
I think
but
they do.
I kind of like those. There are a couple of extra cheesy ones that I love. End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I have such a weird.
Vanessa Williams is in that
I have
too.
a weird soft spot for that movie, but it's just Terminator as an exorcist, and I'm kind of like into Constantine. There are a ton. I literally, while I was writing this, every weekend I was like, I need to watch a new horror movie just to like kind of keep the juices going and just to find new like tools in the toolbox to use in this book.
And it is the season right now. What about horror comics? What do you gravitate towards?
Well, I love everything that James Tynion is doing.
Yeah.
The Nice House in the Lake.
a good one.
I love that one. That
The
is
Lux edition comes out, I think, this week.
that is really fantastic. I just read what Cullen Bunn's doing on the Midnight Show, which I thought was fantastic.
That man is a beast. I think he writes more comics than I can read.
Yeah.
Which is- every year, it's insane.
Anything that Alex has done. If Alex is on the book, those were always my favorite horror comics, which is why I wanted to work with him so much.
That's some high praise. That's some high praise.
His upcoming Drive Like Hell If you want to do like a Halloween double feature, you should be getting The Devil That Wears My Face and Drive Like Hell.
So what's give me the quick pitch for Drive by Hell, and you can't say.
Buy this book.
Yeah.
Drive Like Hell is about a getaway driver who decides to steal a nice-looking car. It turns out to be the devil's car, and the devil wants it back. So to make it out alive, he's got to drive like hell.
Awesome.
And buy this book before I spend it.
There we go. David, what about you? I know like I mentioned, you're working on The Punisher, and you're working on. How long do you guys expect this to go on?
6 issues.
6 issues, and then a trade paperback?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I hope so.
What else are you working on?
Yeah, so the 4th issue of Moon Knight City of the Dead just came out in stores. I built that as Inception meets Taken, where Moon Knight has detached his soul and journeys to the City of the Dead to rescue a young runaway. And he winds up crossing paths with the Scarlet Scarab from the Disney Plus TV show. It happens to be Mark Spector's long-lost love interest from his mercenary days, who has been reborn in the City of the Dead as basically the Moon Knight of the underworld. So that's been a really fun series, kind of a nice mind-bending way of exploring Moon Knight in a way that's very different from a lot of the city-based adventures that he's been doing in the flagship Jed McKay title.
Yeah.
And that series really is about Mark Spector wrestling with his guilt of his time as a mercenary. And he's killed some supervillains along the way. They have all come back looking for a taste of vengeance as the new Legion of the Unliving. So that's been a very fun series. Then, Punisher. Our first issue comes out November 8th. It introduces Joe Garrison, the all-new Punisher. The way that we put this story together, when Marvel approached me and said, hey, we'd love for you to take over Punisher, but here's the twist. We're going to introduce a brand new legacy character. And I thought that was such a daunting challenge because, every time you're doing a legacy character, it really is, it's how do you distill, what are the core elements of that character that make people enjoy them? But then also, like, how do you approach that in a novel way?
You talked to Ron Mars already, right?
Yes.
Have you talked to Ron Mars?
Okay. Oh, yes. The original, guy for doing that with Kyle Rayner. And, but the thing is, legacy characters, I see that as such an enduring part of comics, going all the way back to Barry Allen and Hal Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
It really is, Cap's Kooky Quartet, the all-new, all-different X-Men. And so when I try to approach this, I look to 2 different characters. I look to Danny Ketch,
nice.
Of how do you separate him from somebody like Johnny Blaze, where you kind of you find the overlap and find what's different. The other character I looked at was Robbie Reyes, where you took
the third Ghost Rider. Well, I guess the fourth Ghost Rider.
Where you took, he pivoted from motorcycle culture to muscle car culture, and so that's what we did for Punisher with Joe Garrison. He was a SHIELD Wetworks agent who retired to pursue the call of family, and someone's blown up his house with his family still in it, and the police think that he did it. So the way I've built it is it's John Wick meets The Fugitive. And so we're leaning into the gun fu elements of it all with this Punisher.
Okay.
So that way, like, not only does he have his arsenal from S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's the choreography of it all and the way that he improvises using his environment. So you can drop Joe in a restaurant or an office building or a zoo or down in the kingdom of Atlantis if you wanted to. And half the fun is how's he going to use that environment to fight his way out. So the way that I'm hoping that this series is going to go is really... it's a Punisher. It's a Punisher for the people.
Punisher for the people.
We
all need one.
If you've fallen through the cracks and the law can't help you, maybe this guy can.
It's got an 800 number you could call him.
The black site. And so we're very excited. We're very excited for this book. We're starting off with an origin story to really get people in on the ground floor with Joe and his adventures in the Marvel Universe. And artist Dave Wachter is doing just absolutely killer work on it. Really beautiful looking stuff. I think it's the best looking book I've done at Marvel to date. And I really can't wait for people to see what Dave Wachter and our colorist Dan Brown have been cooking, because it's really, it's going to knock your socks off.
Well, and here's something that I don't know if you hear often, but like, I know it's a lot of stress going into a character like this.
Sure.
Just because you have so much history with the character of the Punisher and Marvel, of course, as a whole universe.
Sure.
But to a lot of us, Danny Ketch was our Ghost Rider. Like, Johnny Blaze was an old man that just showed up in his Danny Ketch comic, and you're like, there was another Ghost Rider before Danny?
Listen,
so I remember that.
I grew up in the right time where Kyle Rayner was my Green Lantern, so I understand exactly that feeling. And that
Wally West was my Flash.
Exactly.
Barry's been dead for a few years.
What I always find so cool is that these legacy characters, they're always additive to the tapestry of the Marvel Universe. And so that's really, I always see, how do we build a bigger table? How do we invite more people to the table of what's just people, I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, like if you're a Punisher fan, we don't want you to read. That's quite the opposite. I want to bring all those Punisher fans, and I want to bring in everybody who's never read the book and say, look at this.
Yeah.
This is a brand new story. Marvel's never had a John Wick, and we're going to change that. So I'm very excited for people to see this.
That's a cool pitch.
Thank you.
So Alex, besides these 2 projects, what else are you working on? Or where can people see your work?
Oh, just Google my name. I'm all over the place. I'm on Instagram under my name, Alex Cormack.
Don't say for work.
Yep. 80%. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You said
people inside out though.
you said you had an Instagram.
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky. What's all the new ones?
Carrier Pigeon.
Yeah, Carrier Pigeon. Give me a call. Come to your house. Whatever.
What about you, David? Where can people follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Pepose D. David Pepose Comics on Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pepnews, or visit my website at davidpepose.com.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.